Hello, hello everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Using Marketing Data to Power High Growth Goals in 2021. I'm Claudia Tarico, editor of Demand Gen Report, and I will be your moderator for this presentation. Thank you so much, everyone, for checking out this session today. We've got an awesome presentation lined up to really show you how to align your revenue team and hit those numbers with a solid marketing data strategy. Before we begin, I'm just going to run through a few housekeeping slides, and then we'll get right into it. All right, for those who are new to Demand Gen Report, welcome. We are an online media company publishing daily news, a weekly email newsletter, special reports, original research, and a rich menu of additional resources. So if you haven't done so already, join more than 75,000 subscribers to our weekly newsletter by checking out demandgenreport.com today. You could subscribe right on the website. And of course, don't forget to check us out on LinkedIn and Twitter. All of our links and handles are right here on your screen. And we look forward to engaging with you and seeing your feedback on social media. We also just wrapped our B2B Sales and Marketing Exchange virtual experience a few weeks ago. Everything was just awesome, and there's so many amazing presentations that covered everything from ABM to revenue strategies, content marketing, demand generation. A lot of it definitely catered to our new reality, and there was also plenty of sessions that really, help our audience deliver, some important strategies and takeaways for the new year. So check us out. It's online right now on demand, so all of it is available to you at your leisure. We're excited to be partnering with our friends at Grubhub again to offer some lucky attendees a free lunch while they enjoy the series. So check your inboxes. You might get an email from corporate support@grubhub.com. So once you see that, you'll be able to access that lunch credit. For today's presentation, we'll be using the On24 platform. During and after the session, you can access all of the information you need right on the platform toolbar. So on the upper left-hand side, you could actually tweet from directly within the platform. Use the hashtag SPS20. That widget is right there, so you'll be able to go right into Twitter. We also encourage you to ask our presenter questions, and to do so, simply click the Q&A widget at the top right corner of your screen. The session is slated to run about 25 to 35 minutes with a few extra minutes for Q&A following the session, so you could submit those questions at any time. If you want to see what else we have in store for the series this year, you could access all of the SPS sessions on the bottom left of your screen, and then on the bottom right, you'll find some additional resources that we've made available to you. Today's session is being recorded as always, and all of our attendees will receive an archived link to the presentation to go back and review and share with colleagues. And in addition to joining the conversation online and submitting your questions, we also welcome you to let us know how we're doing. We want to constantly improve the level of value we provide you with our webinar series, so we put together a very brief survey that will automatically launch once the webinar session ends. You could actually also just pull up and complete the survey from the platform toolbar. It's actually, the little icon is circled at the bottom of your screen. So before signing off today, please take a moment and complete this quick questionnaire. All right, now I'm so pleased to introduce our featured speaker for today, Charm Bianchini of LeanData. Charm is the Vice President of Growth Marketing at LeanData, and she's responsible for the development of strategic initiatives to drive demand throughout the entire customer lifecycle. She has over 15 years of experience leading teams in strategic roles focused on revenue generation, marketing programs, customer marketing, marketing operations, and sales development. So with all of that said, we are in very, very good hands with Charm, and her sessions are always super thoughtful and plenty of key takeaways to take home. So I'm going to pass things over to Charm to kick it off. Take it away, Charm.
Thanks so much, Claudia. Really happy to be here today with you guys. We're going to really dive into using marketing data to drive high growth in 2021. And I am Charm Bianchini, as Claudia mentioned, the VP of Growth Marketing at LeanData. Been here for a little bit over a year and responsible for driving demand throughout the entire customer funnel. And so today we're going to talk about three things. We're going to talk about improving your marketing data. How do you do that? Why is it important? We're going to talk about planning for growth. Hopefully a lot of you are already in the planning stages for 2021. How do you plan to make sure that your 2021 is successful? And then lastly, we'll touch on automating your data and what that means and making sure that you can access all of this great data whenever you need it. But first, what I wanted to do was I wanted to share some Topo research. So if you know who Topo is, they are a sales and marketing firm that were actually acquired by Gartner last year. And they had a webinar a few weeks ago, which I thought was very, very helpful. It was all around 2021 planning tips. So let's look at a few slides from that webinar. And so what they presented on was 8 key strategies for the 2021 go-to-market motion. And we're going to walk through these strategies, but the one thing I wanted to call out is that 6 out of the 8 strategies, they rely on data. And you can see why we're talking about this topic today, right? It's not just me that thinks data is good to grow your business. It's also Topo, and it's super important to have the right foundation in place. So let's go through these. The first one is follow the data. The ICP and the target market can and should change based on market signals. So this is really important, especially during COVID times. A lot of my friends in various industries have had to do this. They've had to look at their ICP and their target market. Maybe it was selling to restaurants, and we know how hard the restaurant industry was hit. And so because of that, they can't just continue down the same path of, oh gosh, my ICP is restaurants, must sell to restaurants, almost like they're robotic, right? They need to look at the data, realize that restaurants isn't going to be the industry for them. Let's look at what other industries are thriving during this economy, and let's pivot. And so they do that through data. The second is diversifying the go-to-market motion, and this is important as well, especially when you're trying to figure things out during this uncertain time. You can't just keep down the same path of, this is how I've done it before, this is how I'm doing it now. You need to diversify. You need to try out different go-to-market motions. I know at LeanData we were able to pivot, and it's worked well. And so when you diversify the go-to-market motion, you're placing a lot of bets, and you're seeing what works during these changing times. And the one thing I want to call out here, again, is to run a successful go-to-market strategy, what do you need? You need data. You need to be able to understand the strategy that you should execute on, but then also when you're executing it, how do you flow that data to the right people at the right time? Number 3 is about designing an infrastructure built for speed and versatility. And if you think about infrastructures, what do you need to do? You can't just build something, right? You've got to have the right foundation in place. And again, for an infrastructure, data is at the heart of that foundation. Number 4 is about moving to a strategic end-to-end operating model, which is revenue operations. If you guys haven't heard about revenue operations, it is an operating model for growth, and it relies on data, right? It looks at data, it looks at people, it looks at technology, it looks at processes, and how do you flow that through your entire revenue chain. Number 5 doesn't actually have to do with data, but it's important nonetheless. So it's invest heavily in community, and peer referrals are really big. And so those are important for sure. Number 6 is back to data. Prioritize outbound targets based on engageability. And if you think about your ADRs and them following up with certain targets, you want to give them the easiest chance to be successful. And a lot of that is looking at signals. It's looking at engagement data. Who is warmer than a cold one? Let's prioritize our outreach based on that. Number 7 is all around building a sales process based on 90-day priorities. And I think many of you know you can't have a good sales process. You can't have a good sales methodology or move people throughout the various stages in the buying cycle without good data. And then number 8 isn't around data, but again, very important. It's about creating a sales enablement process. A lot of times this gets overlooked, but you need to be able to train your reps, especially what if you're going after a new industry or going after new target accounts. They need to be experts. And so creating a sales enablement process that you can change in an instant is very important. So hopefully these are helpful, and you can think about these when you are planning your 2021 strategy. And one more piece of research I wanted to drill into, and this was number 3 on that list. It's the go-to-market motion around infrastructure. And there's 2 critical attributes that they're talking about. One is speed and one is agility. And these are really the rules of 2021 in order to be successful. So what they say about speed is you've got to be able to shift resources, right? So if you're looking at some intent signals, you're looking at engagement data, and you are getting strong buying signals from these accounts or this market, you've got to shift resources and be able to go after them. And then, more importantly, if you want to shift resources, how do you get that data to the right reps? And so they call out in the second bullet here, route your prospects and your customers to the right sales reps for immediate follow-up. So important in today's age. And then lastly is flexibility. You've got to be able to pivot when necessary. And I know a lot of us are already getting pretty good at pivoting, unfortunately, but you've got to be able to do it, and we've got to be ready to pivot also in 2021. And so in order to do these 2 things, speed and being flexible, you have to have the right revenue stack, and that revenue stack needs to support all of this data, needs to support your go-to-market motions, it needs to support your workflows, etc. And so, you know, I'm saying it, Topo's saying it, I think you guys realize this, right? To drive growth, the one thing that you can do is focus on your data. And we're going to get into that in this presentation in just a little bit. All right, so let's talk about improving your marketing data and what that actually means. I love this stat by SiriusDecisions. It says that SiriusDecisions found that 25% of the average B2B database is inaccurate at any given time. That's pretty alarming. There's another stat that I saw that said 5% of your database decays monthly. Who knows? Maybe now in COVID times, since unfortunately a lot of people have lost their job, maybe now it's 7% decay monthly, 10% decay monthly. I don't know, but there's tons of stats out there that talk about the cost of bad data, and it's a real thing, and that's why I want to spend a few minutes talking about how you can improve your marketing data. So first and foremost, don't let bad data bring you down. There are some real terrible results of having bad data in your system. The first one is marketing and sales won't be aligned. You need to work with them even closer than you have been in 2021 to execute on your plan. And when marketing is doing one thing, sales is doing the other, you don't see the data, you're not able to access it, you won't be aligned. And then what happens? Well, you're missing opportunities that you could work together on and actually generate pipeline. So your pipeline is probably going to be weak. Another big result of having bad data is you can't see clearly. You're kind of flying blind. And you want to be able to track how things are progressing throughout your funnel. But if you have bad data that you're pouring into your funnel, you're not going to see the true picture. And so that lack of visibility throughout the funnel, you'll have your hands tied. You won't be able to actually pivot, do what Topo said, right? Be agile, be quick, and you won't be able to optimize any of those conversion rates. And then for marketers, we really know that if you're trying to bring in bad data into a marketing campaign, it's going to perform poorly, right? So what if you are trying to do a campaign on financial services and you have bad industry data, and that bad industry data makes you pull in manufacturing companies into this campaign, right? That's going to be a really bad look on your half. The other thing it's going to do is you're not going to be able to see the campaign ROI. And so, for example, if we go back to financial services, maybe you're running a financial services webinar series, but if you can't properly tag all the financial services companies in your database, you won't be able to tell, did the financial services represent most of the attendees for my webinar? And maybe they won't, and then that's going to show some really bad campaign ROI. And then more importantly, let's think about our customers. Our customers need to believe in us. We're trying to form these lasting, great relationships with them. And if we don't know that they're a customer and maybe we're marketing to them as if they're a prospect, or maybe we do know they're a customer but we are unaware of what products they're using, that's really bad. And that's going to erode the faith that they have in you as a company. So what can you do? A simple step is invest in a data management strategy. And this is what we did at Lean Data. It doesn't have to be this huge, crazy, heavy lift. You just need to admit that there is some sort of issue, some sort of problem, and then come together to resolve it. And so the first thing that we did was we formed a data committee. And we meet monthly, and it's a committee that has business people as well as technical people on it. So from the business side, we might have the VP of Sales or the VP of the ADRs. I'm on that committee. On the technical side, we also have our operations folks, our IT folks. And so this is important so everyone can weigh in as to what do they feel the state of the data is, where are they experiencing pains, what do they want to prioritize in terms of fixing. And when you come together monthly, you can actually develop a plan of attack of improving your data, making timelines to make sure that you're not just coming up with a plan, that you're actually hitting those timelines. And then more importantly, you can also decide on piloting new technology. There's so much new technology out there that helps you with data that this is a great opportunity and great place to bring up, oh, I heard about this new vendor, maybe we should try it. And so this is what we do. We formed this data committee. And then our second step was to really understand and audit our data. And by understand, I mean, what are the data sources? Where is all this data coming from? How old is it? It's kind of fun to geek out and go and pull the first record in your database and see when did that record come in? How old is it? Do you even need it, right? And then also, is there dirty data coming in? And who's entering that dirty data in? Sometimes it's your sales reps because you don't have a good process in place. So what I mean by that is, are your AEs or your ADRs entering in contacts into the database, but they're not filling in email or not filling in state or not filling in country because you don't have those as mandatory fields. So what you need to do is make those mandatory fields and do a training with them on the importance of really good data and how to enter it into the system. The next thing you do is you audit your data. And this is important so you can get a picture in a moment of time, right? And you use these snapshots to benchmark on how you're doing. And so we like to audit our data. We like to understand, okay, maybe we have 65,000 accounts in our database. Maybe we have 50% of them with country, 30% of them haven't responded to a sales or marketing email in 2 years, right? Look at all of that information and figure out, what is the plan to address all of this? And then you can see if you're improving over time, and that's what you want to do. That's the name of the game. And so a lot of people, hopefully on your operations team, they should have OKRs or MBOs against improving the data, right? And they should take on improving the health of your database quarter after quarter by 10%, by 15%, whatever it is. But when you get to step 3 around creating this plan, you can understand, how are we going to get people in compliance? How are we going to take the people who haven't responded in 3 years and try to reactivate them? Or do we even want to reactivate them? Do we want to just dump them? So that's the plan that you create and start to action against. And then step 4 is all around cleansing and purging your data. You don't have to get super overwhelmed of, oh gosh, I've been in business for 10 years, we have so much data. That's totally overwhelming. I read some studies where they say all you need is 1 to 2 years of data. And once you have 1 to 2 years of data, you're fine. You can cleanse it, you can enrich it, you can purge it. What I recommend, if you are going to purge it, just to be safe, maybe make a backup, right, in case you ever want to bring it back. And then step 5 is automating the process. All these steps that I talked about are pretty manual at the beginning, but then how do we automate it? Is it going to be that enrichment is going to run every Friday at 5 p.m.? Is it going to be that someone else is going to do something every month to ensure that the database is remaining healthy? All right, so now let's talk about planning for growth with the right metrics. And we're so lucky in marketing today. We have so much data. It actually can be a little bit overwhelming, so I don't want you to get data paralysis. But analytics are more important than ever, and you should be leveraging data, especially right now, for the planning process. What I love to do is figure out what are the questions I want to ask and use those insights to inform my 2021 strategy and really fuel the growth that I need to. And so a little bit on asking the right questions. You can't be vague. If you ask a vague question, you'll get a vague response. And so remember this, the more specific the question you ask, the more precise the answer is going to be. And when you have a precise answer, that's when you can actually make a better business decision. And so if you think about questions that marketers might ask, it might be, what are my best campaigns? Well, that's good to know, right? But it's pretty vague. And so I would recommend trying to be very specific, as I just mentioned. So maybe you change that to, what are the top channels for enterprise new business opportunities? Or, what campaign creates the fastest enterprise ops, right? That's going to be looking at velocity. That's going to be looking at last touch attribution data. So be really specific. Ask questions for pipeline. Ask questions for closed won revenue. And then the other thing about questions are, ask what kind of metrics that your boss, your CMO cares about. Because you can take these answers and start optimizing. But if you're optimizing for something that the CMO doesn't care about, then there's a misalignment, and that's a problem. And a lot of times what is in a CMO's head is different from a demand gen marketer. So just keep that in mind. And lastly, be creative in your approach. Just because someone gives you a data set doesn't mean you need to glean all of your insights from this data source, right? Maybe it's not enough. Maybe you need to go and get some additional data from somewhere else and marry the two data sets together. Or maybe you need to ask people for some feedback in order to come up with the answer. So it's not kind of a one-fits-all. Sometimes you actually need to massage and think outside of the box to get the answers that you need. All right, so here what I wanted to do was just pull out a few examples that we can walk through. There's tons of examples for 2021 planning, but I wanted to just pick a few that are high level that everyone should be thinking about. And the first one is a plan of record, also known as a POR. And a lot of times you will be given a financial plan. So your boss or the CEO will tell you, we need to grow 50% year over year, or 70% year over year. Those are your high-level revenue goals. But what you do then is you start working backwards from the number. You need to figure out from the revenue goal, what's the pipeline required? How many opportunities do I need? What is the close rate? What is the average sales price? And you shouldn't just have kind of a generic POR. You should think about customizing it for your segments. You have to, right? Maybe your segment number 1 is for small business, and segment 2 is for mid-market, and segment 3 is for enterprise. All of those have different deal sizes. All of those have different goals for the year. All of those have different close rates. And so make sure that you are really understanding and coming up with plan of records for those business units or those regions that you support. And then after you've done that, you can layer in the marketing programs. I would caution you, right, you've got to look at this not only for the segments, but also for customer versus prospect. But I would also caution you to take a step back once you've done this analysis and make sure it makes sense. I've been at companies where once you get down to the marketing programs, you say, okay, well, great, I need $20 million to hit these goals. And you go back and ask for $20 million. Guess what? You're not getting $20 million. You're going to get $500,000 more than you did last year. And so you're pretty much remaining flat. And so how are you going to get to these goals? And this is when you need to have a voice and say if it doesn't make sense. And so, you know, I have worked at a company where they said, you need to get, for every dollar I give you, you need to get a 30X in return. And so I spoke up and said, that's not doable. That is not realistic. We need to come up with another plan, because the last thing you want to do is have marketing, sales, and the ADRs not hitting their numbers, and from January 1, you feel demoralized because you know there's no way that you'll ever get there. All right, another one is opportunity source. So now that you have your POR, you need to figure out how many opportunities do we need. And I'm hoping that this is also pretty simple for you guys. I know at Lean Data we've made it very simple. We want to know where our opportunities are coming from, and we want to know who is sourcing them. And so I was pulled into a meeting, I think, on day 1 that I was at Lean Data, and I walked away with an action item to define black and white, right? Define each opportunity source. You can't have an opportunity be inbound and outbound because you've got this very vague, ambiguous definition. So you need to have crystal clear, concise definitions for each opportunity source. You also need to prioritize it. So I wanted it automated. I wanted a formula, a script running in the background. As soon as an opportunity is created, it then checks to see, does it meet the inbound requirements? If it does, it stamps as that is inbound. If it doesn't, it goes to the next one, which is outbound. If it doesn't meet outbound, it goes to the next one, which is customer, and so on. And this also removes, it makes it very fair, it removes the tension. I've worked at companies where people will say, oh, I created this opportunity, or a partner created this opportunity. Well, if you align and agree on definitions ahead of time, then you know where the opportunities are coming from. And for 2021 planning, you can then also have a voice and say, I can't do more inbound, right? At some point, there's a point of diminishing returns for inbound. Last year, maybe 90% of your opportunities came inbound. But if you're not going to get any more money or resources and you need to grow by 70%, you're probably going to not be able to rely on inbound again for 90% of those opportunities. You're probably going to have to build out your outbound muscle. So by looking at this, it can really inform your strategy for 2021. Here's another one. This is engagement data for territory planning. And if you think about engagement data, this is top of funnel data that a lot of marketers use to tell if ABM is working or not. And it's great, right? You can look at it for account data. You should. You shouldn't wait till the very end of an ABM program that could take a year to tell if it's working or not. So engagement data is helpful. But you can also look at engagement data for campaigns. We look at it for campaigns, and we pull out one campaign and we see who has followed up in terms of sales, who has not, right? So we're able to understand groups of people that sales need to go back and follow up with. The other thing that you can use engagement data for is for territory health and territory planning, and we do this at Lean Data. We look at the marketing engagements in a territory, and we have carved out and changed our territories multiple times throughout the year based on this engagement data. And so, for example, if we look at marketing engagements here, I can see that the Southwest at the bottom has like double or triple some marketing engagements than some of the other territories. And so as a marketer, I can go back to my boss and say, did you know? Did you know that the Southwest has 3X? I didn't spend any additional money in the Southwest. And so maybe we need to think about doubling down in the Southwest and having more ADRs and more sales support them. So that's where you can come in and be very strategic and help change the conversation. So the other good thing to look at is sales engagement. Maybe you're not going to double down in a territory, but you look at the Central West here, and they're killing it, right? There's tons of sales engagements. Maybe you have a rep there that is just outperforming everyone else. Well, perhaps you could make a recommendation to give them a new territory and try to penetrate. So this data can be very, very insightful and help drive the right decisions for the business. Another thing to look at is revenue funnel metrics. And these are really important because you've got to understand what's happening throughout the entire revenue funnel. This is a lead funnel. I know there's account funnels, right? So instead of marketing qualified leads, it's going to be marketing qualified accounts or MQAs. It doesn't matter what kind of funnel you have, if you're doing pure accounts, if you're doing leads, if you're doing a hybrid approach, which many companies are doing. All I'm asking you guys is to really understand the funnel. Benchmark it again. You need to see how was it last year? How was it 6 months ago before COVID? Take industry benchmarks maybe from Serious Decisions and know, do your conversion rates look okay or are they off? And so what you can use these revenue funnel metrics for in planning is to optimize for volume, right? What if I spend more money? How many more leads are going to come through and flow through? Or what's the velocity if we try to do additional programs mid-funnel to speed these up? And then, of course, conversion rates. This is where 2021 planning usually relies on. It is not about, oh, I need $20 million more to hit the number. It's what would happen if I adjusted the MQL to the SAL conversion rate by 2%, by 5%? What happens if I went and helped sales close more deals? So the opportunity win rate went from 23% to 28% or even 30%. When you make those small adjustments, I'll tell you what happens. Millions of dollars, right, all of a sudden are able to be closed. And so that's something that you guys should be thinking about. Once you have the revenue funnel, right, you want to be able to look at that revenue funnel, again, what we talked about for the PORs, by the industries, by the regions you support, by the business units, et cetera, but also look at it by marketing channels. And this is where it kind of gets fun. I look at it by campaigns as well as a channel. And so I will compare top of funnel channels versus some of my bottom of funnel channels. I will understand, right, maybe a top of funnel channel is great in creating MQLs, but nothing turns into opportunities. So that's not going to help me in 2021. And so look at your channels and then pick specific campaigns, like maybe a huge trade show that you put on, and see how things are flowing. But for example, this could be a webinar channel, right? So 3,000 people have come through this webinar channel. 38% are an MQL stage. That's great. 12% are a sales accepted lead. Sales qualified lead, which means they're working on it, they're setting up meetings, is 35%. And 15% have turned into opportunities at this point in time. So pretty solid in terms of a channel. And then what's recommended is if that was a really good performing channel, that was just dummy data, but let's say that was your webinar channel, and webinars or demo requests usually do well for 99% of the marketers out there, start to dig deep and really understand how you can make this channel even more successful in 2021. So analyze where the registrants and attendees are coming from. Do you know their lead source? Do you know their acquisition program? Do they come from a trade show? Do they come from another program? Maybe if these are all the people who attend webinars or register for webinars, maybe you need to double down and get more names from these sources. And then also look at your promotional channels. I'm sure you do this, but it's always nice to know, right? Does the website drive registrations for you? Are all your registrations coming through email? Is it coming from a digital campaign? Is it coming from sales? Optimize those channels. Maybe drop some if they're a lot of work and you hardly get any leads. Then understand these people even more. How many are from your ICP? Hopefully at least 70%. How many are from your target accounts? What's the persona? What's the job level? Maybe you created a series. You thought it was going to be executive series, but everyone that's registering for it is mid-management. Do you need to adjust the content, or do you need to really focus on just inviting executives? And then look at the lead score and the stage of the buying cycle. That's important as well. You want to know if you do have a late stage webinar, but people are registering that are early stage, there's something off, right? And so make sure you incorporate all of that analysis into your 2021 planning. And then lastly is marketing attribution. I'm not going to go deep into this. I think by now everyone has an attribution product. What I don't think people do is I don't think they spend a lot of time customizing it and having it easily accessible so it can answer the questions that you're looking for. I know as marketers we get so heavy into execution mode that sometimes unless we're going to renew a program, we may not look at this. So force yourself to. Put time on your calendar every week or every 2 weeks to look at the attribution of your programs. What I like to do is force people by creating a monthly program review meeting. If you create a meeting where everyone has to come with a slide or two on how their programs are performing, guess what? Everyone's looking at this data on a regular basis, and that's a good thing. So right here, these are just, again, some dummy data examples. You've got to look at pipeline attribution. You've got to pick your model. Do you want to look at first touch, multi-touch, last touch? You've got to look at it also for revenue attribution, closed business attribution, right? Look at velocity, look at days to op. I mean, all of this is really important when you are planning for 2021. And then lastly, let's talk about automating your data. And when I think about automating data, it's almost as if you need to think about the plumbing, right? So now we've talked about, okay, we've determined our 2021 strategy, we've done our research, we know what kind of plan we have, and we're ready to execute, but whoa, do we have the plumbing in place to actually make the execution successful? It's like spending $10 million on a fancy home, but oops, we forgot to put the plumbing in. We never did that, right? And you're going to have some serious issues with your house. And so this is what you need to do. You need to think about, okay, I'm going to bring in all these leads. Is sales going to be able to see them? Am I going to be able to see them? Am I going to be able to have a holistic account view of what's going on within this account so I can execute my ABM strategy, right? What you should do is use lead to account matching technology. The technology out there makes it so simple to unify your data. You also uncover a great amount of hidden connections, and you can see this holistic view of accounts that people then can act on. And once you have unified your data, then you need to be able to route it to support all the go-to-market strategies. So we talked about this. Diversify per Topo's requirements for 2021 health, right? Diversify your go-to-market motions. There's different go-to-market strategies out there. They're very complex. There's inbound, there's account-based, territory-based, customer expansion. Can you route all this data immediately to the right people for all these different motions within your company? And the last thing about routing is enforce service level agreements. Create a service level agreement. What do you expect for your inbound team? Do you expect them to follow up in 2 hours? If so, document that. Have them sign off on it, and put some sort of SLA reporting in place so you can ping them or you're notified if they're not following up in 2 hours. Or maybe even be more extreme where after 2 hours, you actually pull that lead from their queue and round robin it to someone else. Same with account-based. Maybe account-based you follow up in 6 hours. So whatever it is, make sure that you're enforcing and also creating these service level agreements. And then lastly, super important, right? We've unified our data, we're routing it. The rest of the company needs to be able to access it in real time and leverage this engagement data. Make it available for sales and marketing. Make it easy for sales. Don't make them go and try to find it in some random report. Put it in something that they look at all the time, like their CRM, right? Make it a dashboard that you use, that sales use, so there's no confusion on, oh, well, I didn't see those numbers. That's not what my dashboard looks like. And then when you have this accessible data, then you can act on it and make it really powerful. And then the last 2 bullets are all around, again, the attribution and the analysis, right? Make sure that marketers have access to real-time pipeline and revenue and campaign ROI information. You can't analyze or measure performance without it. All right, so to close out, hopefully you guys found this helpful. Hopefully I was able to guide you in your path of discovery and 2021 planning. And what I wanted to leave you with and just reiterate is investing in the health of your data. It's the biggest thing that you can do to grow your business and generate more pipeline. Also, ask the right questions. You've got to be very, very specific in order to get the right answers. And then don't forget about the plumbing, right? Automate the flow of data across the revenue engine. This is so important. Do this before you start launching a bunch of campaigns. You don't want all your leads to go into a big black hole. All right, and to close out, just a few slides on Lean Data. Lean Data does drive value throughout the revenue funnel. We have a lead to account matching solution. We've got engagement data that we provide. We have routing capabilities and attribution as well. If you have any questions on Lean Data, please reach out. Reach out to me or any of these resources that are listed online. And with that, I will turn it back over to Claudia. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Charm. As always, incredible insights and great, great takeaways. We did get some really good questions, and I think we have time for at least 1 or 2. But before I get to those, I just want to remind everyone once again to please share your thoughts and feedback before logging off today. You can do so by clicking that survey icon at the bottom of your screen, or just wait for the session to end, in which the survey will automatically launch. All right, now let's get to those questions. All right, first one. Who should be pulling all of this data for planning purposes?
Good question. Well, hopefully you work at a big enough business that you have some help. A revenue operations team is great. Revenue operations can also be sales operations. It can be your marketing operations people. You could have a BI person. You could have a data analyst. If you don't, marketers can pull this on their own. The only thing that I caution you is I have worked at companies where we have planning meetings like I talked about, and everyone in marketing is pulling their own data. And if you don't really understand the data, or you don't know that there's 5 different industry fields in Salesforce, or you don't know how to do some sort of analysis, you can show up to the meeting with totally different results. That's the problem. You can look at data and kind of interpret it and tell the story that you want, which is dangerous. And so before trying to do it alone, I would suggest reaching out and finding out, is there someone in finance? Is there someone in IT? Is there someone in your operations team or your MOPS person that can help?
Awesome. Thank you. Let me check the time. All right. I think we have time for one more. All right. What if you don't agree with the plan of record for the year?
That is a $1 million question. That is a good question. So I talked about having a voice, right? You want to earn your seat at the table, and you always want to be positive. but you also don't want to take on something that's unrealistic. And so, again, question, poke, ask where these numbers came from. Are these numbers what the VCs want to see? Are the numbers pulled out of the air? Are these numbers really important for your company to do X, Y, and Z? So if you have a better understanding of where these numbers are coming from, you can get behind the POR a little bit more. I also think if it really is unrealistic, you should say so, right? You should keep that drumbeat of telling people, I don't feel comfortable with this plan. I don't see how we're going to get there. So hopefully that can go back to the executives and the drawing board, and they can listen to your feedback and figure out, where is this going to come from. And you can ask them, I don't see, how are we going to get to this number, right? A 30x return on a marketing spend doesn't make sense to me. We've always been at a 6 or a 10, right? How are we getting to 30? And so, hopefully by doing that, you'll feel more comfortable about where the plan came from as well as how you can get there.
Good stuff. All right, I think we're at about time, so I'm going to stop the Q&A as it is right now. But like I said, if we didn't get to your question live, do not worry. We will follow up with answers via email. All right, folks, that's a wrap on another awesome SPS 2020 session. Thank you to Charm for always showing up with great content, and thank you to all of our attendees for taking the time to join us today. Don't miss the next session coming up. It's called The New Rules for ABM and Growth in 2021, Building Your New Year's Resolutions List. And it's going on in actually just a few minutes at 1 p.m. Eastern. I look forward to seeing you all there. Thanks again, everyone, and take care.